This is Alan Dean Foster.
Hi, I'm Alan Dean Foster.
And he's a science fiction writer.
Yes, I am.
You might even be familiar with one of his books.
In 1975, I worked with George Lucas and wrote the book version of Star Wars.
No way.
Yes way.
This is Alan Dean Foster's office. This is the view from Alan Dean Foster's deck. This is how Alan Dean Foster met George Lucas.
They were looking for someone to do the book version of this science fiction film that no one knew anything about. I was asked by my publisher if I'd be interested. I said yes, and that's how the book came to be.
It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it came with one pretty big caveat.
George's name would be on the cover, and I couldn't admit to having ghostwritten the book.
So he lied for a long time.
So I had to lie to people's faces for 20 years.
This is liar Alan Dean Foster's library. He's written a whole bunch of novelizations.
Star Wars, of course, the first 3 Alien films, The Chronicles of Riddick, Clash of the Titans, and most recently, The Force Awakens.
And a lot of other books, too.
Sentenced to prison, Season of the Spell Song, Vanishing Into the Out of.
And that's maybe the least interesting thing about him.
There are secrets that will forever remain unrevealed.
These are Alan Dean Foster's weightlifting trophies. This is Alan Dean Foster's bench press.
Okay.
Here's Alan Dean Foster's front kick.
Got that from Chuck Norris.
Not a joke. Here's Alan Dean Foster with his camera. He's recorded his travels on 6 continents.
I'm stuck on this one planet. I'm determined to see as much of it as I possibly can.
So how does a world-famous, crazy prolific sci-fi writer manage to keep this up and still find time for his writing?
Well, to stop learning is to start to die.
Didn't Desiderius Erasmus say that?
Yes, he did. You know, John Ford only needed one take.
Welcome, Photon Warriors. Commence strategic maneuvers and audible command signal. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin.
I invented laser tag about 30 years ago.
That game we all grew up playing, high on pizza and soda on a weekend night, it was invented here, in Dallas, Texas, by this guy, George Carter. Laser tag might never have happened if it hadn't been for one particular movie.
The movie Star Wars. I was sitting at a theater in Las Vegas and watched them going up and down the halls of the ship, shooting lasers at one another.
Gonna interrupt you there, George. There are no actual lasers in laser tag.
Yeah, I found out early on that there was a rule against shooting lasers at people. There was a federal agency that didn't allow that.
Back to the story.
And I thought I'd put it in some sort of context and make rules, and we've got a great game then.
George is an inventor. He has a lot of patents.
Actually, about a dozen.
Oh. A couple of his other inventions?
Motorized surfboard, the first modern bumper boat, off-road vehicle called the Snoopy.
But we're here in Dallas to talk to him about a game he called Photon.
My first choice was laser tag, and my trademark attorney said that it's too generic, you'll never be able to get a trade name on that, so we had to come up with another name.
But it was a little different than laser tag is today, right?
We promoted running and actually being very competitive.
George's ideal game was actually designed for 20-something-year-old men, not pre-tween birthday parties at family centers. Conceptually, it had 3 main tenets. First,
yeah, the arena was very important. We had some facilities that had very large arenas, up to 20,000 square feet.
The second,
the field needed to be symmetrical so that you had an equal advantage or no advantage to either team.
And the third.
Yeah, immersive environment with lots of special effects, lots of music, lots of lights, lots of fog. That really got you into the game.
So what happened?
Well, Photon toys in 1986 were the #1 boys category. But it was actually kind of an error because it lowered our demographic age.
George doesn't play laser tag anymore. Call him a purist.
Yeah, and I got other things to do too. I've got other hobbies.
I grew up playing laser tag at a family center. And having learned about Photon, yeah, it seems cooler. But I like laser tag too.
when the young kids on the street found out that I was working on Star Wars. I was like a god to them. Those kids are now parents. They've seen the movies throughout the years. There's always in the back of their mind like, oh wow, I remember playing with the Falcon. I remember playing with the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter. To understand that you have a small part of that kind of bigger world is pretty cool. My name is Mark Boudreau, and I've been fortunate enough to work on Star Wars toys since 1977. The amazing thing about Star Wars, I don't think it's really ever gone away. It's always been there. Vehicles has been sort of what I really am the most passionate about. TIE Fighters, X-Wings, Rey's speeder. I've always built models, built planes, cars. So they said, hey Mark, why don't you go ahead and start working on the Millennium Falcon? And I said, like, sure, why not? The Millennium Falcon is more than just a machine. It really is a character that helps save the day. It's more than just a hunk of junk. He wanted to be able to provide an experience that could extend from the film. So when you went to go see the movie, you come right back and you're playing with Luke, you're playing with Han, you're playing with Chewie, and you're able to relive everything that you saw in the film. Long after I've gone to the Force, wherever that might be, this product will still be there. Grandkids from now will hopefully still be enjoying Star Wars. And we certainly want to try to do our small part into making sure that that continues.
It was a dark time for Star Wars when CG characters started popping into every corner of the series. But before Jar Jar stumbled into our collective consciousness, Star Wars was all about puppets, which brings us to this guy.
I'm Dave Barclay. I'm a puppeteer and puppet builder and animatronic effects supervisor.
You might recognize Dave better under 200 pounds of fiberglass and latex because he was one of the puppeteers inside Jabba the Hutt. But to play the most notorious gangster on Tatooine, you gotta start somewhere. And Dave? Well, he got his big break with a little green man.
That is why you fail.
Yoda was famously puppeteered by Frank Oz, the legend behind Cookie Monster and Grover.
Show you near and far. Yoda not far.
But Yoda was a complicated puppet, and it took 4 to 5 people working different body parts to bring him to life. Dave's job was controlling Yoda's eyes and ears.
There was a sequence when Yoda is prodding Mark with a stick, saying where he was, what he was doing, and I'm doing a little squint and subtle control on the eyes. Yep, right there, that's me doing the eyes there. Towards the end of the filming on Empire Strikes Back, Frank Oz was performing Yoda, and it became clear he had to move on to another film and he wasn't going to be available, so they needed someone to take over from Yoda, and Frank nominated me. I was 19 years old, so suddenly there I am with Yoda.
Even at 19 years old, Dave's Yoda scenes blended perfectly with Frank Oz. That was Dave. Did you guys see that? Let's take one more look. Dave did such a good job, they called him back and asked him to run a new puppet called Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt was probably the most complicated and sophisticated animatronic puppet that anyone had ever tried to build, and it took 6 to 7 people to operate. Inside Jabba, it was very claustrophobic, very close. One person doing the left hand, the head movement and the tongue, another puppeteer doing the mechanical tail, another puppeteer doing the breathing on the air bladders. I did Jabba's right hand, and I did his jaw, and then I provided the voice on stage. My voice doesn't make it to screen, but if you turned up on set, you'll hear this sort of voice.
Where's my talk drive?
As a child, there weren't really any movies that had puppeteers in them. There was a little bit here and there, but there were no solid characters like Yoda. And being part of the Yoda team, which really was the first performance animatronic in movies, was the start of this huge growth that lasted about 20 years. And as a puppeteer and as a puppet maker and someone who loves the movies, I was in exactly the right place at the right time, and I've had a wonderful career doing what I adore. So I feel very lucky and privileged.
I got a call from an agent who wanted me to go and audition for a new film called The Empire Strikes Back. That was how I became a Stormtrooper.
This whole thing started because this guy at our office is really into Star Wars. We all have one, right? After some pretty serious internet sleuthing, I've tracked down this guy.
My name's Ralph Morse.
He was a Stormtrooper in Star Wars Episodes 5 and 6. That's The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
I was in the Get My Shuttle Ready sequence. I decided to carry my gun left-handed side saddled, like I was carrying a shotgun in the West. And it's in the film. You can see it.
So we're talking about what it felt like to be a Stormtrooper. And for the most part, that means what it felt like to wear the costume.
I think all the costumes were the same size. And the original model, I think, was about 5'10". Some of the guys who are either terribly tall or terribly short found the costumes unbearable. And once you're in this thing, you can't really get out of it. You couldn't really sit down at all. You had to kind of lean to one side. And if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you needed to prepare yourself. You needed more than 30-second warning.
Oh boy.
Okay, but there is the helmet, the iconic helmet.
The first helmet they gave me, I couldn't see through the damn thing at all. Hello? The other problem we had were our boots. They had soles, but they had no tread in the soles. So you would slide all over the place. I don't know a Stormtrooper who hasn't at some point fallen over.
Oh. Alright, so it wasn't very glamorous. But it's still cool, right? Because, Star Wars.